There are cities that welcome you slowly. They ease you in, give you time to adjust, and let you find your footing before they show you what they really are. Bilbao is one of those places. You come around the bend and the Guggenheim is just there. Titanium panels catching the light like something that landed from another century. And behind it, the river. And behind that, an industrial port town that decided one day to rewrite its entire story. That decision changed everything. Travel 40 minutes down the coast to San Sebastián, and the whole world changes. It might as well be a different country. Where Bilbao wrote itself through architecture, San Sebastián never had to. It has always been one of the most beautiful cities on the Bay of Biscay for over 100 years. Belle Époque buildings, a crescent beach that looks like it was designed by someone who had very strong opinions about perfection. 2 Basque cities, same coastline, completely different ways of looking at the world. And as an artist, the contrast between them completely rewrote the rules of how I see. When you travel to places that are famous for art and design, it is incredibly easy to feel intimidated. You feel this unspoken pressure to make your work look like what you've seen online. You think you have to buy a ticket, stand in line, and photograph the same exact things the travel brochures told you to look at. Before I went to Bilbao, I thought it was just a port city with a famous museum, a stop on the way to San Sebastián. But I was wrong. Walking along the Nervión River changed my mind within the first hour. The scale of it, the way the city sits along the water, the bridges, the promenades, old buildings next to new ones, all of it reflected in the river below. It was one of the most visually layered urban walks I've taken anywhere. The Zubizuri Bridge alone stopped me for 20 minutes. It connects the old city to the Guggenheim on the other side of the river, and it is one of those structures that rewards every angle you give it. From below, from the side, from the far bank, every position is a different photograph. When I arrive somewhere new, I try to spend the first 20 minutes or so without raising my camera at all. Just walking, just looking. Every city has a visual personality, a geometry, a light quality, a rhythm. Bilbao is angular, reflective, bold. Industrial bones dressed in contemporary skin. Once I understood that, every frame I made afterwards felt intentional instead of reactive. And then there's the Guggenheim. I didn't go inside the gallery. This was a work trip, and the client wanted to give us a real tour of the city streets instead. We didn't really have enough time to go inside. I figured out that the real creative spark wasn't behind the glass cases inside the museum anyways. It was on the pavement outside. I could have spent a full day just working that building from every angle. And every time the light changed, so did the building. The Guggenheim is one of the most photographed buildings in the world, which means the obvious shot has been taken about 10 million times. What I looked for instead were the places where the titanium panels created unexpected reflections, where the curves of the building framed the sky in an interesting way, where the sculptures in front gave me a foreground element that told the story the building alone could not tell. Go wide, go low, go close to the surface, and let the material itself become the subject. Complex architecture rewards photographers who are willing to slow down and move around instead of planting themselves in one spot. The rest of Bilbao gave me what every city gives you when you stop trying to find the famous things, the ordinary details that end up being anything but ordinary. We spent our time walking along the water, through the shopping districts, and deep into the food culture. If you're working on your own creative projects right now and you feel stuck because your environment doesn't look like a curated gallery, you might be chasing the wrong thing. The goal isn't to copy what's already inside the building. It's learning how to read the visual personality of where your feet are planted right now. 40 minutes down the coast and the whole visual language changed. San Sebastián, from the moment you come over the hill and see it for the first time, looks like someone painted it. The crescent of La Concha Beach curves around the bay, the old city on the end. Monte Urgull rising above it, the water that particular shade of Atlantic green-blue that does not photograph the same twice. I just stood there for a while taking it all in. It was beautiful. Coastal light behaves differently than city light. There's more moisture in the air, more reflection off of the water, the shadows are softer, the highlights are broader. When I'm shooting near the ocean, I pull back on the contrast in my editing and let the natural softness carry the image. Fighting it makes everything look flat. Working with it makes everything look like the place actually felt. We stayed at the Hotel Londres, right on the Paseo de la Concha. This beautiful building, built in 1865, has been a casino, a hospital, and even a palace. Queen Isabella II lived in the building before she went into exile in 1868. It's the kind of hotel that makes you understand why people have been coming to San Sebastián for 150 years. Once the sun goes down, if you stay out late enough along the beach walkway, the city shows you its real magic. The way the white wrought iron railing curves into the darkness and the warm light falls off of those old ornate clock towers, it carries this quiet, romantic weight. It's a reminder that as artists, we aren't just documenting geography. We're capturing a feeling that's been sitting there for 100 years. Monte Urgull sits above the old town and gives you the full panoramic view of the bay. The old fortress sits at the top. The city spreads below. The beach curves around in both directions. The old town of San Sebastián is compact and dense and completely walkable. Every street is a composition waiting to happen. The Cathedral of the Good Shepherd, the Basilica of Santa Maria, Gothic stone in a city that otherwise feels like it belongs on a French Riviera. That contrast is the part of what makes San Sebastián so visually interesting. There are layers here that go back much further than the Belle Époque elegance suggests. The Rio Urumea splits the city, and the bridges crossing it are worth every minute you spend on them. The Urgull and the Zubizuri bridges both frame the city in completely different ways, depending on which direction you face. The Victoria Eugenia Theater is one of those buildings that reminds you that San Sebastián has always taken beauty seriously. The Belle Époque architecture built in 1914. It sits at the edge of the old town like an exclamation point. The old town of San Sebastián is famous for its Pintxo bars. Small, beautiful bites lined up across wooden counters where locals move from bar to bar sampling the many choices. The Pintxo culture is a Basque version of tapas. You can find them in every establishment throughout Old Town. You point at what looks good, you eat it with a glass of wine or cider, then you move on to the next place. The ritual of it is beautiful. The abundance of it is overwhelming in the best way. Food photography is its own discipline and one I trained in early on in my career. But when you're shooting food in a cultural context, the food is not always the subject. It becomes the life happening around it. The bar top lined with options, the beverage that accompanies it, the crowded room. Don't just shoot a tight shot of the food. If the story lends itself to the room, share those surroundings and tell that story. The image changes. It becomes about the culture, not just the cuisine. San Sebastián takes food more seriously than almost anywhere else in the world. It has more Michelin stars per capita than any other city in Europe. My friends visited Martin Berasategui and Mugaritz, two of the most celebrated restaurants in Spain. I wasn't at those dinners, but I've seen the photographs they brought back. That level of culinary artistry deserves to be mentioned in the same breath as the Guggenheim. Both are expressions of the same thing, a culture that decided that excellence was worth the effort. Sometimes the best pieces of a story come from the plans that failed. We decided to take a trip up to Monte, Igueldo to watch the sunset over the bay from the hotel at the top of the hill. The plan was simple. Take a cab to the base, ride the gondola up to the top, get the shot at sunset, and come back down. But it didn't happen quite like that. The taxi dropped us off and left us before we realized that the gondolas were not operating that evening. Realizing that the amount of time it would take to get a cab to come back and take us to the top in time for the sunset, we decided we could walk. Using Google Maps, it looked like we were just on the backside of where we needed to be. After more than an hour of serious uphill climbing with stairs, winding roads, and then we were stopped by a gate that closed off the abandoned road. There was a trail that went around the side, and I'm sure the signs that we couldn't read said no trespassing, but we did anyways. After another 20 minutes of walking, we found ourselves around a bend where there was a lighthouse just below the hotel with another gate. This one wasn't one we could climb. In that moment, we realized we were on private property when an angry Spaniard came out yelling at us that we needed to go back down the hill and get off of his property. Despite our plans completely going wrong, we still got to experience incredible panoramic views of San Sebastián on that 3.5-mile trek back down the hill. The beaches below, the way the bay curves around in both directions, the horizon of the Atlantic as the sun was going down. I would do all of that over again without hesitation. Sometimes my strongest images come from moments I did not plan. A wrong turn, an unexpected stop, a situation that was mildly inconvenient in the moment and completely unforgettable in the photograph. Stay loose, stay curious. The itinerary is a suggestion. The detour is usually where the real work happens. I've been thinking about why these two cities affected me the way they did. Bilbao chose Reinvention. It looked at what it had become, an industrial port in decline, and decided to build something that would make people come from every corner of the world just to stand in front of it. And it worked. San Sebastián never had to reinvent itself. It just kept being exactly what it was. Beautiful, proud, serious about the things worth being serious about. As an artist, I find both of those stories deeply relatable. Sometimes you have to rebuild from scratch. Sometimes you have to trust what you already are and keep going. Either way, the work continues. Stay ready. That's all. Just stay ready. When two cities are your subject, the biggest mistake you can make is treating them as one continuous experience. They are not. Bilbao and San Sebastián have completely different visual identities, different architecture, different light, different energy. In my photography, I treated them as separate assignments. When you honor what makes each place distinct, the contrast between them becomes the story. The contrast is always more interesting than a seamless transition. Next week, we head further north along the coastal Verde part of the Atlantic coast. The green hills, the Viking fishing harbors, the medieval villages. If you want to explore Bilbao and San Sebastián yourself, I've linked some tour options in the description below through an affiliate travel partner. The free field guide, Stop Shooting, Start Seeing, is also in the description. Use code SPAINVISION and it's yours free. If something in this journey hit home for you, whether it's the need to reinvent your work or the reminder to embrace a creative detour, leave a comment and let me know. I read every single one. Thank you for spending this time with me. Go find the light in your corner of the world.